The light in the kitchen is flickering again. I keep meaning to change the bulb, but I forget. Or maybe I just don't see the point anymore. It's only me here. No one's coming over to notice. I made myself some soup for dinner tonight. Canned soup. The kind you just heat up on the stove. I used to make soup from scratch. I'd start in the morning, let it simmer all day. The whole house would smell like onions and carrots and whatever else I'd thrown in. My husband used to say he could smell dinner from the driveway. That was a long time ago. Now I heat up a can and eat it straight from the pot, because washing an extra bowl seems like too much trouble. I'm 74 years old. I live alone in a house that used to be full of people, and I'm trying to figure out how I got here. There's a photograph on the refrigerator. It's been there for years, held up with a magnet shaped like a strawberry. The photo is from a Christmas, maybe 15 years ago. My whole family is in it. My 3 kids. My husband before he died. The grandkids when they were small. Everyone's smiling. We're crowded together in front of the tree. I remember taking that picture. I had to set the camera on a timer and run to get in the frame. I almost didn't make it. You can see I'm slightly out of focus on the edge. But I'm there. I'm in the picture. I was always in the picture back then. Now I look at that photo and I wonder where all those people went. Not literally. I know where they are. My daughter Linda is 2 states away. My son Paul lives about 40 minutes from here, but he's always busy. My youngest, Greg, is out west somewhere doing something with computers. The grandkids are grown now, off at college, or working, or starting their own lives. My husband Tom died 6 years ago. Heart gave out one Tuesday morning while he was reading the paper. So I know where everyone is. But they're not here. And I'm alone with my canned soup and my flickering light. I married Tom in 1969. I was 21. He was 23. We met at a dance at the community center. He wasn't much of a dancer, but he asked me anyway. I thought that was brave. We dated for 8 months and then got married at the courthouse because neither of us wanted a big fuss. His parents weren't thrilled. They thought we should wait. But we didn't wait. We got a small apartment near the factory where Tom worked. I got a job at the dime store. We didn't have much money, but we had each other, and that felt like enough. Linda came along 2 years later. Then Paul. Then Greg. 3 kids in 6 years. The apartment got too small, so we moved to a rental house. Then Tom got a better job, and we bought our own place. This place. A 3-bedroom ranch with a yard and a carport. It needed work, but it was ours. I stopped working when Linda was born. That was just what you did back then. Tom worked. I stayed home with the kids. And there was always something to do. Diapers and laundry and meals and cleaning. The kids needed constant attention. Linda was shy and needed coaxing. Paul was wild and needed watching. Greg was sick a lot when he was little. Ear infections mostly. I'd be up with him half the night, and then have to get the other 2 ready for school in the morning. I was tired all the time. Bone tired. But I didn't complain. This was my job. Taking care of them. Making sure they had what they needed. Tom worked long hours. He'd come home exhausted, and I'd have dinner ready. We'd eat together at the kitchen table. The kids would talk about their day. Tom would nod and listen, but he didn't say much. He wasn't a big talker. After dinner he'd sit in his chair and watch TV. I'd clean up and get the kids ready for bed. Then I'd sit down for maybe an hour before I fell asleep on the couch. That was our life. Day after day. Year after year. I don't think we were unhappy. We were just busy. Too busy to think about whether we were happy. There was always something that needed doing. Linda needed help with a school project. Paul had soccer practice. Greg needed new shoes. The car needed fixing. The roof started leaking. Bills needed paying. It was one thing after another. And I handled it. I handled all of it. I was the one who remembered everything. Who kept track of everything. Who made sure everything got done. Tom provided the money, but I provided everything else. And I didn't mind. I really didn't. I thought that's what love was. Taking care of people. Making sure they had what they needed. Putting them first. Always. The kids grew up. Linda went to college and studied to be a teacher. Paul went to trade school and learned welding. Greg got a job right out of high school and moved out west. They all left. One by one they left, and Tom, and I were alone in the house again. It felt strange at first. Quiet. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd spent 25 years taking care of kids, and suddenly there were no kids to take care of. Tom said I should enjoy it. Relax. Take it easy. But I didn't know how to relax. I'd forgotten how. So I found other things to do. I volunteered at the library. I joined a quilting group. I kept the house spotless even though it was just the two of us, and we barely made any mess. I'd cook big meals, and we'd have leftovers for days. Tom would ask why I made so much food, and I didn't have a good answer. I just did. The kids would call sometimes. Linda called every few weeks. She'd tell me about her students and her husband, and later her 2 kids. Paul called less often, maybe once a month. He'd tell me he was fine and work was fine, and everything was fine. Greg almost never called. Maybe on my birthday. Maybe on Christmas. He said he was busy. He said he'd visit soon. But soon never came. I'd tell Tom I was worried about them. About whether they were eating right and sleeping enough, and if they were happy. Tom would say they were adults now. They were fine. They didn't need me hovering. But I couldn't help it. I'd spent my whole life worrying about them. I didn't know how to stop. Linda lived close enough that we'd see her family a few times a year. Birthdays. Holidays. She'd bring the kids over, and they'd run around the yard, and I'd make a big meal. But the visits felt rushed. She was always checking the time. Always had somewhere else to be. Her husband didn't talk much. The kids were polite but distant. They didn't know me very well. I was just Grandma, the old lady who gave them cookies. After they left the house, would feel even quieter than before. Tom would go back to his chair and his TV. I'd clean up the dishes and put away the leftovers, and I'd feel this ache in my chest, this feeling that something was missing. But I didn't know what. Paul got married and had a daughter. He lived about 40 minutes away, but we didn't see him much. He said his wife's family lived closer, so it was easier to visit them. I understood that. I did, but it still hurt. I wanted to know my granddaughter. I wanted to be part of her life, but I wasn't. I'd see pictures of her sometimes. Paul's wife would post them online. Birthday parties and school events and family outings. And I'd wonder why we weren't invited. Why we weren't included. Tom said not to take it personally. Said they were just busy. But it felt personal. It felt like they'd forgotten about us. Then Tom died. I woke up one Tuesday morning, and he was sitting in his chair with a newspaper, and he just slumped over. I thought he'd fallen asleep at first. But when I went to wake him, he was gone. The doctor said it was quick. Said he didn't suffer. Said his heart just stopped. The kids all came for the funeral. Linda and her family. Paul and his family. Even Greg flew in from out west. They stayed for a few days. They helped me with the arrangements. They were kind and attentive and helpful. And I thought maybe this would bring us closer. Maybe now they'd visit more. Maybe now they'd call more. Maybe losing their father would remind them they still had a mother. But after the funeral, they all went back to their lives. And the phone calls didn't increase. The visits didn't happen more often. Everything went back to how it was before. Except now I was alone. Really alone. No Tom in his chair. No sound of the TV. Just me in this house that suddenly felt too big. I'd walk from room to room and remember. This was where Linda learned to ride her bike. This was where Paul broke his arm falling off the swing set. This was where we had Christmas mornings and birthday parties and family dinners. All those memories were still here, but the people were gone. And I didn't know what to do with that. I started calling the kids more. Just to check in. Just to hear their voices. Linda would answer sometimes. She'd chat for a few minutes, but I could tell she was distracted. I could hear her kids in the background. She'd say she had to go, and we'd hang up, and I'd sit there holding the phone, wondering what I'd done wrong. Paul almost never answered. He'd text later saying he was at work or busy with something. He'd say he'd call back, but he usually didn't. Greg never answered. I'd leave voicemails asking him to call, telling him I missed him, asking how he was. Most of the time, he wouldn't call back. When he did, it was brief. 5 minutes maybe. He'd say everything was fine. He'd say he'd visit soon. But he never did. I tried inviting them over. For dinner. For holidays. For no reason at all. Linda would come occasionally. Paul would make excuses. Greg would say he couldn't make it. I'd cook anyway. I'd set the table for everyone even though I knew they probably wouldn't show. And when they didn't, I'd eat alone and then pack up the extra food and put it in the freezer where it would sit for months until I finally threw it away. I started to realize something. Something I didn't want to admit. They didn't need me anymore. Maybe they never really had. Maybe I'd needed them more than they'd needed me. I'd built my whole life around being their mother, around taking care of them, and now that job was done, and they'd moved on. But I hadn't. I was stuck in this house with all these memories and no one to share them with. I got sick last winter. Nothing serious, just a bad flu. But I was in bed for a week. Couldn't get up. Couldn't cook. Could barely make it to the bathroom. I called Linda. She said she was sorry I wasn't feeling well. She said she'd try to come by, but she was dealing with something with one of her kids. She never came. I called Paul. He said he'd see if he could stop by after work. He didn't. I didn't bother calling Greg. I knew he wouldn't come. So I stayed in bed alone. I had crackers and water on the nightstand. I slept most of the time. When I finally got better, I realized something. If something really bad happened to me, if I fell, if I had a heart attack like Tom, I could die here and no one would know for days, maybe weeks. And that thought terrified me. Not the dying part, but the no one knowing part. The being so disconnected from my own family that they wouldn't even notice I was gone. I thought about calling them, about telling them how I felt, about saying I was lonely, that I needed them, that I'd given them everything I had, and now I had nothing left, and I was scared. But I didn't. Because what would be the point? They'd feel guilty maybe. They'd visit more for a little while. But then things would go back to normal. Because this is normal now. This is what families do. Kids grow up and leave and build their own lives, and parents get left behind. I know that. I did the same thing to my own mother. I was busy with my kids and my husband and my life. I didn't visit her as much as I should have. I didn't call as much as I should have. And when she died, I felt guilty. I felt like I'd failed her. But I also felt relieved. Relieved that I didn't have to feel guilty anymore. And now my kids probably feel the same way about me. They feel guilty, but they're also relieved when they can hang up the phone or leave after a short visit. Relieved they've done their duty. Checked the box. Called Mom. Visited Mom. Now they can go back to their real lives. I sit in this kitchen most evenings now, at the same table where we used to eat as a family, where the kids would do their homework, where Tom would read the paper. It's just me now. Me and my canned soup and my flickering light. I think about all the years I spent taking care of everyone, all the sacrifices I made. I never bought anything for myself. Any extra money went to the kids, for school clothes, for sports equipment, for college. I worked part-time jobs when they were older to help pay for things. I never complained. I never asked for anything in return, because that's what mothers do. They give. They sacrifice. They put everyone else first. And I did that. I did all of that. And I thought it meant something. I thought it would matter. I thought when I got old and needed help they'd be there. Not because they owed me, but because they loved me. Because we were family. But love isn't always enough. Or maybe love changes. Maybe the love kids have for their parents is different than the love parents have for their kids. Maybe it's not as strong, not as lasting. Or maybe I'm just making excuses. Maybe they don't think about me much at all. Maybe I'm just a phone call they need to make, a visit they need to schedule, an obligation they need to fulfill. And that hurts more than anything. Being an obligation, being a burden, being someone they have to remember, check on, instead of someone they want to see. I don't blame them. I want to be clear about that. I don't think they're bad people. They're not. They're just busy. They have their own families, their own problems, their own lives. And those lives don't include me very much anymore. That's just how it is. Maybe I smothered them when they were growing up. Maybe I didn't give them enough space to become their own people. Maybe they associate me with all the rules and restrictions of childhood, and now they just want to be free. I don't know. I've thought about it a lot, and I still don't have answers. What I do know is that I gave everything. My time, my energy, my youth, my identity. I was a mother before I was anything else. And I was good at it. I kept them fed and clothed and safe. I helped with homework. I drove them to activities. I stayed up when they were sick. I worried about them constantly. I loved them with everything I had. And somehow that wasn't enough. Or maybe it was too much. Maybe I loved them so much I forgot to have my own life. And now they have their lives, and I have nothing. Just this empty house, and these memories, and this terrible knowledge that I'm not needed anymore. I look at that photograph on the refrigerator sometimes. Everyone smiling. Everyone together. And I remember what it felt like to be surrounded by family. To be needed. To matter. And then I look around this empty kitchen, and I wonder what it was all for. All those years of sacrifice. All that work. All that love. What did it get me? An empty house. A flickering light. Canned soup for one. Phone calls that come less and less often. Grandchildren I barely know. Kids who have their own lives, and barely any room in those lives for me. The worst part is knowing it's my own fault. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I did everything. I gave so much that I didn't keep anything for myself. No hobbies. No real friends. No life outside of being a mother and a wife. And when those roles ended, I had nothing left. No identity. No purpose. Just this hollow feeling that follows me from room to room. I should have kept something for myself. Some part of me that was just mine. But I didn't. And now it's too late. I'm too old to start over. Too tired to build a new life. So I just sit here, waiting for phone calls that might not come, hoping for visits that probably won't happen, trying not to think about how many more years I might have to live like this. Alone. Forgotten. Left behind. Sometimes I think about what I'd say to my younger self if I could, what advice I'd give. But I don't know what that advice would be. Don't love your kids so much. Don't sacrifice everything for them. Keep something for yourself. All of that sounds selfish. Sounds wrong. But maybe it's not wrong. Maybe it's necessary. Maybe you have to keep part of yourself separate, protected. So when your kids grow up and leave, you're not left with nothing. So you still have something that's yours. Something that gives your life meaning beyond being someone's mother or someone's wife. But I didn't do that. I gave everything. And now I'm alone. And I don't know if my kids even realize it. I don't know if they think about me sitting here by myself. If they wonder whether I'm lonely. If they feel any responsibility to change it. I used to think family meant you'd never be alone. That the people you raised and loved would always be there. But that's not true. You can give everything to your family and still end up alone. You can sacrifice your whole life for them, and they can still drift away. Not because they're cruel. Not because they don't care. Just because life moves forward, and sometimes you get left behind. The soup is cold now. I should heat it up again, but I've lost my appetite. I'll probably just pour it down the sink and go to bed. Tomorrow I'll get up and do it all again. Make my coffee. Eat my breakfast alone. Maybe the phone will ring. Probably it won't. And I'll sit here in this house full of memories and try not to think too hard about how it all turned out. Try not to add up all the years I gave and compare them to what I have now. Because when you do that math, it doesn't work out in your favor. The equation doesn't balance. You give everything and get back almost nothing, and you're supposed to be okay with that, because that's what love is. That's what family is. But some days I'm not okay with it. Some days I'm angry. Some days I'm just sad. And some days, like today, I'm just tired. Tired of being alone. Tired of waiting. Tired of wondering if anyone will even notice when I'm finally gone.